I don't think they would do this sort of thing. But from a strictly military point of view and a decisive win point of view, at least in terms of their major enemy, I'd destroy Israel right off the bat.
Wouldn't Israel be anticipating that? And then wouldn't that risk Israel using nuclear weapons?
Yes, it might. And then I think we have a whole new ballgame. And if the United States can't restrain Israel from moving out of Dimona nuclear weapons on submarines or aircraft, then we need to know that. We need to learn that. We need to face the consequences of that. It would change the dynamics immediately. But I got news for Bibi Netanyahu. Iran is a big, big place with variegated terrain and incredibly dense populations in some areas and almost no one in other areas. So unless you are really, really on top of where you're going to target your nuclear weapons, they aren't going to have anything but a psychological impact of the first order. They're not going to have a war-winning impact. Now, if you go on and launch more and more and more, then the United States is probably going to have to step in and stop it. And then we're off to the races. But nuclear weapons of the magnitude that Israel would use and could use, while they would be horrendous, and the most dramatic and dangerous thing would be that they were used at all and open Pandora's box for others to use them. At the same time, they're not going to be that effective against a country as large as Iran. They'll be devastating in the points where they hit, but they will not be that effective. For example, were Netanyahu to have used a nuclear weapon on Fordo, where the underground facilities were so sophisticated, it would not have done anything more than the B-2 bombs that were dropped, which is to say not very much at all. We know that. We know that from our own studies of what it takes to take out, for example, a Soviet silo with an ICBM in it. We know how many nuclear warheads we have to put on that silo, how many times we have to hit that silo before we have, say, a 90% probability of destroying that missile in that silo. And those missiles are not as far in the ground as the Iranian facilities were when the B-2s dropped bombs on them. So I'm not trying to downplay the seriousness of nuclear weapons. I think it would change the entire dynamic of the war. But I am saying that Israel might be a little bit surprised that the Iranians come back and just continue to destroy them, regardless of being hit by a nuclear weapon or two. They keep on and destroy Israel.
Is that what you see likely is happening? And let's can you talk about that also in the context of the 12-day war from last year? What did you learn from that?
I think we learned, and I think the Israelis learned, which is why they are so eager to have the United States either with them at the commencement or very quickly thereafter, or commence it ourselves. Netanyahu would prefer we commenced it ourselves and then he come in, because they really took a shellacking. And I think intelligence has informed them that they didn't even get the first order and the amount of missiles in that first order that Iran has. So they took a shellacking, and they took a shellacking in places where they didn't think they could be hit. For example, just one example, the Iranians targeted a fairly sophisticated missile at a facility that they would normally not target, because the Iranians are good about not hitting civilian facilities. They just go for military facilities. By the way, Israel's not that way at all. On the West Bank, in Lebanon, or in Gaza, Israel loves to hit civilians. So they hit this facility, spot on, hit it. And what they were really after, it was a civilian facility above ground. But what they were really after was going through the civilian facility and into the ground and penetrating, because there was a very sophisticated Israeli intelligence unit under that building. The Israelis were hiding it under a civilian building, thinking that the Iranians normally, as they do, wouldn't hit a civilian structure. Well, the Iranian intelligence was good on that. They knew it was there. They did hit the civilian building and utterly destroyed the intelligence facility beneath it. Now you're going to see that repeated again and again and again, because they're not going to feel they have any restrictions. And you're going to see a lot of Israelis in the street, in the debris, dead, just like you do in Gaza now. We've already lost, I say we, I hate to say that with regard to Israel these days, but they've already lost, of the Israeli population of Israel, it was roughly half and half, Palestinian and Arabs and Christians and others, and Israeli Jews in Israel proper, 14.7 million or something like that, roughly divided in half. They've lost at least 1 million, and maybe some are telling me now 2 million Israeli Jews. They've gone to Cyprus, they've gone to Greece, they've gone to Germany, they've gone to other places. They're the rich ones. They're the brain drain too. They have the money and they have the wherewithal to get around Netanyahu's restrictions that are blanket. You can't leave Israel if you're a Jewish Israeli. But they left. They found a way to leave. They had a boat in the Mediterranean or whatever. So they've lost a lot of their population already. And with this, they would lose every Jewish member of the state of Israel still there, I think, either dead or wounded or leaving.